So my name is Anna Jennings, and I am going to be reading some 13th century ballads about Robin Hood. But before we get going on that, I was asked quite a bit this week about whether or not I would be singing these, and so I wanted to give a little bit of background so that you know why I am not. The way that these ballads were originally distributed was kind of in flyer format. They were referred to as broadsheet ballads, and they were just like passed out on the street. Because remember, 13th century, we don't have radio or television or anything, so everybody just kind of read and sang together as a group. However, these ballads collected by Francis Child were found with reference to other songs that we don't know the tunes for as the tune for the song. So it would be like today, if you got some lyrics to something and it said, to the tune of Let It Be, like 90% of people know that tune, but we don't know any of the tunes for these. Mm-hmm. So we don't tend to sing them. There's a pretty interesting, come on in. There's a pretty interesting backstory that I wanted to share as far as these particular ballads go. Like I said, these were published by Francis James Child. He claims, and there's some serious debate in the scholarly community whether or not this is accurate, but he claims that he was at his friend's house and found their maid throwing a bunch of old broadside ballads into the fire as fuel. So he valiantly rescued them. Now, that's probably not actually true, but that's what he says. And so we have this collection. I'm not going to read any of the ones. There are quite a few in here that we only have about half the ballad because the rest of it was burned up in the fire. So I am going to read a few. I'm going to start with a shorter one, I should say. This is the ballad of Robin Hood and Little John. If we don't know about Robin Hood, Little John's like his best friend forever, and they tromp around the woods together. But this is the story of how they met each other. And we have to remember that I really enjoy these. My family actually claims that we're descended from Robin Hood. This is obviously inaccurate. He's not a real person. But we do have in my family this kind of obsession with Robin Hood myth and legend because of that obviously false story. So, Robin Hood and Little John. When Robin Hood was about 20 years old, with a hey down and a down, he happened to meet Little John, a jolly brisk braid, right fit for the trade. He was a lusty young man. Though he was called little, his limbs they were large, and his stature was 7 feet high. Where'er he came, they quaked at his name, for soon he would make them to fly. How they came acquainted, I'll tell you in brief, if you will but listen a while. For this very jest, amongst all the rest, I think it may cause you to smile. Bold Robin Hood said to his jolly bowmen, pray tarry you here in this grove, and see that you all observe well my call, while through the forest I rove. We have had no sport for these 14 long days, therefore now abroad I will go. Now should I be beat and cannot retreat, my horn I will pleasantly blow. There did he shake hands with his merry men all, and bid them at present goodbye. Then as near a brook his journey he took, a stranger he chanced to espy. They happened to meet on a long narrow bridge, and neither of them would give way. Quoth bold Robin Hood, and sturdily stood, I'll show you right Nottingham play. With that from his quiver an arrow he drew, a broad arrow with a goose wing. The stranger replied, I'll liquor thy hide if thou offerest to touch the string. Quoth bold Robin Hood, thou dost pray like a jerk, is what we're going to.
Oh. Beep.
For were I to bend but my bow, I could send a dart quite through thy proud heart before thou couldst strike me one blow. Thou talk'st like a coward, the stranger replied. Well armed with a longbow you stand, to shoot at my breast while I protest, have not but a staff in my hand. The name of a coward, quoth Robin Hood, I scorn, wherefore my longbow I'll lay by. And now for thy sake, a staff I will take, the truth of thy manhood to try. Then Robin Hood stepped to a thicket of trees and chose him a staff of ground oak. Now this being done, away he did run to the stranger and merrily spoke. Lo, see my staff is lusty and tough. Now here on the bridge we will play. Whoever falls in, the other shall win. The battle, and so we'll away. With all my whole heart, the stranger replied, I scorn in the least to give out. This said, they fell to it without more dispute, and their stabs they did flourish about. At first Robin he gave the stranger a bang so hard it made his bones ring. The stranger he said, this must be repaid, I'll give you as good as you bring. So long as I'm able to handle my staff, to die in your debt, friend, I scorn. Then to it each goes and followed their blows as if they'd been threshing of corn. The stranger gave Robin a crack on the crowd, which caused the blood to appear. Then Robin, enraged, more fiercely engaged, and followed his blows more severe. So thick and so fast did he lay it on him with a passionate fury and ire. At every stroke he made him to smoke as if he had all been on fire. Oh, then into fury the stranger he grew and gave him a damnable look, and with it a blow that laid him full low and tumbled him into the brook. I prithee, good fellow, oh, where art thou now? The stranger in laughter he cried. Quoth bold Robin Hood, good faith in the flood and floating along with the tide. I needs must acknowledge thou art a brave soul, with thee I'll no longer contend. For needs must I say, thou hast got the day, our battle shall be at an end. Then unto the bank he did presently wade, and pulled himself out by a thorn, which done at the last he blowed a loud blast straightway on his fine bugle horn. The echo of which through the valleys did fly, at which his stout bowmen appeared, all clothed in the green, most gay to be seen, so up to their master they steered. Oh, what's the matter? Quoth William stoutly. Good master, you are wet to the skin. No matter, quoth he. The lad which you see is fighting has tumbled me in. He shall not go scot-free, the others replied. So straight they were seizing him there, to duck him likewise. But Robin Hood cries, he is a stout fellow, forbear. There's no one shall wrong thee, friend, be not afraid. These bowmen upon me do wait. There's 69 if thou will be mine. Thou shalt have my livery straight, and make other accoutrements fit for a man. Speak up, jolly blade, never fear. I'll teach you also the use of the bow, to shoot at the fat fallow deer. Oh, here is my hand, the stranger replied. I'll serve you with all my whole heart. My name is John Little, a man of good mettle. Ne'er doubt me, for I'll play my part. His name shall be altered, quoth William astutely, and I will his godfather be. Prepare a feast, and none the least, for we will be married, quoth he. They presently fetched in a brace of fat does, with humming strong liquor likewise. They loved what was good, so in the greenwood, this pretty sweet babe they baptized. He was, I must tell you, but 7 feet high, and maybe an ell in the waist. A pretty sweet lad, much feasting they had, bold Robin the christening graced. With all his bowmen, which stood in a ring, and were of Nottingham breed, brave Stuteley comes then with 7 yeomen, and in this manner proceed. The infant which caused John Little, quoth he, which name shall be changed anon. The words will transpose, so where'er he goes, his name shall be called Little John.
Yay!
And so that's how Robin Hood and Little John became best friends forever.
BFFs.
So another wonderful Robin Hood pal is his good friend Maid Marian. I'm going to take a drink of water real quick. Okay. His good pal Maid Marian. They love each other a lot. And so there's a ballad about that too. There's a ballad about everything. All right. So this is Robin Hood and Maid Marian. A bonny fine maid of a noble degree, with a hey down, down, a down, Maid Marian called by name, did live in the north, of excellent worth, for she was a gallant dame. For favor and face and beauty most fair, Queen Helen she did excel. For Marian then was praised of all men that did in the country dwell. 'Twas neither Rosamond nor Jane Shore, whose beauty was clear and bright, that could surpass this country lass, beloved of lord and knight. The Earl of Huntington, nobly born, that came of a noble blood, to Marian went with a good intent by the name of Robin Hood. With kisses sweet their red lips meet, for she and the earl did agree, in every place they kindly embrace with love and sweet unity. But fortune bearing these lovers a spite, that soon they were forced to part. To the merry green wood then went Robin Hood, with a sad and a sorrowful heart. And Marian, poor soul, was troubled in mind for the absence of her friend. With finger in eye she often did cry, and his person did much contend. Perplexed and vexed and troubled in mind, she dressed herself like a page, and ranged the wood to find Robin Hood, the bravest of men in that age. With quiver and bow, sword, buckler, and all, thus armed was Marian bold, still wandering about to find Robin out, whose person was better than gold. But Robin Hood he himself had disguised, and Marian was strangely attired, that they proved foes, and so fell to blows, whose valor bold Robin admired. They drew out their swords, and to cutting they went, at least an hour or more, that the blood ran apace from the bold Robin's face, and Marian was wounded sore. "Oh, hold thy hand," said Robin Hood, "and thou shalt be one of my string, to range in the wood with bold Robin Hood, to hear the sweet nightingale sing." When Marian did hear the voice of her love, herself she did quickly discover, and with kisses sweet she did him greet like to a most loyal lover. When bold Robin Hood and his Marian did see, good Lord, what clipping was there, with kind embraces and jobbing of faces providing a gallant cheer. For Little John took his bow in hand, and wandering in the wood, to kill the deer and make good cheer for Marian and Robin Hood. A stately banquet they had full soon, all shaded in a bower, where venison sweet they had to eat, and were merry that present hour. Great flagons of wine were set on the board, and merrily they drunk round, their bowls of sack to strengthen the back, whilst their knees did touch the ground. First Robin Hood began a health to Marian his only dear, and his yeomen all, both comely and tall, did quickly bring up the rear. For in a brave bane they tossed off the bowls, while thus they did remain, and every cup, as they drank up, they filled with speed again. At last they ended their merriment, and went to walk in the wood, where Little John and Maid Marian attended on bold Robin Hood. In solid content together they lived, with all their yeomen gay. They lived by their hands without any lance, and so did many a day. But now to conclude, an end I will make, in time as I think it is good, for the people that dwell in the north can tell of Marian and bold Robin Hood.
Yay!
So we actually do have some balladry that is still around today. Has anybody ever heard the song of Barbara Allen? Hey! So I'm not going to read it because it gets really bizarre, but there is Bonnie Barbara Allen. There are two different versions of it that are considered real versions, but we still see evidence of this stuff today. I do have one more, and it is rather long, but it is a true tale of Robin Hood. It's not a true tale, though. Don't let them fool you. It's not a real person. Not a real person. Both gentlemen or yeomen bold, or whatsoe'er you are, to have a stately story told, attention now prepare. It is a tale of Robin Hood, which I to you will tell, which being rightly understood, I know will please you well. This Robin, so much talked on, was once a man of fame, instilled Earl of Huntingdon, Lord Robert Hood by name. In courtship and magnificence his carriage won him praise, and greater favor with his prince than any in his days. In bounteous liberality he too much did excel, and loved men of quality more than exceeding well. For great revenues all he sold, for wine and costly cheer. He kept 300 bowmen bold, he shooting loved so dear. No archer living in his time with him might well compare. He practiced all his useful prime, that exercised most rare. At last, by his profuse expense, he had consumed his wealth, and being outlawed by his prince, in woods he lived by stealth. The abbot of St. Maurice rich, to whom he many ought, his hatred to this earl was such, that he his downfall wrought. So being outlawed, as 'tis told, he with a crew went forth, of lusty cutters stout and bold, and robbed in the north. Among the rest, one Little John, a yeoman bold and free, who could, if it stood him upon, with ease encounter three. 100 men in all he got, with whom the story says 300 common men durst not hold combat anyways. They Yorkshire woods frequented much, and Lancashire also, wherein their practices were such that they wrought mickle woe. None rich durst travel to and fro, though ne'er so strongly armed, but by these thieves so strong in show that they were robbed and harmed. His chiefest spite to the clergy was, that lived in monstrous pride, no one of them would he let pass along the highway side. But first they must to dinner go, and afterwards to shrift. Full many a one he served so, thus while he lived by theft. No monks nor friars he would let go without paying their fees. If they thought much to be used so, their stones he made them lees. For such as they the country filled with bastards in those days, which to prevent these sparks did geld all that came by their ways. But Robin Hood, so gentle was and bore so brave a mind, if any in distress did pass, to them he was so kind, that he would give and lend to them to help them at their need. This made all poor men pray for him, and wish he well might speed. The widow and the fatherless he would send means unto, and those whom famine did oppress found him a friendly foe. Nor would he do a woman wrong, but see her safe conveyed. He would protect with power strong all those who craved his aid. The abbot of St. Marie then, who him undid before, was riding with 200 men and gold and silver store. But Robin Hood upon him set with his courageous sparks, and all the coin perforce did get, which was 12,000 marks. He bound the abbot to a tree and would not let him pass. Before that to his men, and he his lordship had said mass. Which being done, upon his horse he set him fast astride, and with his face toward his hour he forced him to ride. His men were fain to be his guide, for he rode backward home. The abbot being thus vilified did sorely chafe and fume. Thus Robin Hood did vindicate his former wrongs received, for 'twas this covetous prelate that him of land bereaved. The abbot he rode to the king with all the haste he could, and to his grace he everything exactly did unfold, and said that if no course were ta'en by force or stratagem to take this rebel and his train, no man should pass for them. The king protested by and by unto the abbot then, that Robin Hood with speed should die with all his merry men. But ere the king did any send, he did another feat, which did his grace much more offend. The fact indeed was great. For in a short time after that the king's receivers went toward London with the coin they got for highness northern rent. Bold Robin Hood and Little John with the rest of their train, not dreading law, set them upon and did their gold obtain. The king much moved at the same, and the abbot's talk also. In this his anger did proclaim, and sent word to and fro, that whosoever alive and dead could bring him Robin Hood should have 1,000 marks well paid in gold and silver good. This promise of the king did make full many yeomen bold attempt stout Robin Hood to take with all the force they could. But still, when any came to him within the gay green wood, he entertainment gave to them with venison fat and good, and showed to them such martial sport with his long bow and arrow, that they of him did give report how that it was great sorrow, that such a worthy man as he should thus be put to shift, being late a lord of high degree of living quite bereft. That king to take him more and more sent men of mickle might, but he and his still beat them sore and conquered them in fight. Or else with love and courtesy to him he won their hearts. Thus still he lived by robbery throughout the northern parts. And all the country stood in dread of Robin Hood and his men, for stouter lads ne'er lived by bread in those days since or then. The abbot, which before I named, sought all the means he could to have by force this rebel ta'en and his adherents bold. Therefore he armed 500 men with furniture complete, but the outlaws slew half of them and made the rest retreat. The long bow and the arrow keen, they were so as done to, that still they kept the forest green in spite the proudest foe. 12 of the abbot's men who came him to have ta'en, when all the rest the field forsook, he did entertain with banqueting and merriment, and having used them well, he to their lord and safely sent, and willed them to him to tell, that if he would be pleased at last to beg of our good king, that he might pardon what was past, and him to favor bring. He would surrender back again the money which was before was taken by him and his men from him, and many more. Poor men might safely pass by him, and some that way would choose, for well they knew that to help them he evermore did use. But where he knew a miser rich, that did the poor oppress, to feel his coin his hand did itch, he'd have it more or less. And sometimes when the highway failed, then he his courage rose, he and his men have oft assailed such rich men in their homes. So that, through dread of Robin then and his adventurous crew, the misers crept great store of men, which else maintained but few. King Richard, of that name the first, surnamed Coeur de Lion, went to defeat the pagans cursed who kept the coasts of Sion. The Bishop of Valais Champsaur was left as viceroy here, who like a potent emperor did proudly domineer. Our chronicles of him report that commonly he rode with 1,000 horse from court to court where he would make abode. He riding down toward the north with his aforesaid train, Robin and his did issue forth them all to entertain. And with the gallant grey goose wing they shewed to him such play that made their horses kickle and fing, and down their riders lay. For glad and fain the bishop was for all his 1,000 men to seek what means he could to pass from out of Robin's ken. 200 of his men were killed, and 80 horses good. 30 who did as captains yield were carried to the greenwood, which afterward were ransomed for 20 marks a man. The rest set spurs to horse and fled to the town of Warrington. The bishop sore enraged then did in King Richard's name muster a power of northern men these outlaws bold to tame. But Robin with his courtesy so won the meaner sort that they were loath on him to try what rigor did import. So that bold Robin and his train did live unhurt of them, until King Richard came again from fair Jerusalem. And then the talks of Robin Hood his royal ears did fill. His grace admired that the greenwood, he thus continued still. So that the country fair and near did give him great applause, but none of them need stand in fear but such as broke the laws. He wished well unto the king, and prayed still for his health, and never practiced anything against the commonwealth. Only because he was undone by the cruel clergy then, all means that he could think upon to vex such kind of men. He enterprised with hateful spleen, for which he was to blame, for fault of some to wreak his tin on all that by him came. With wealth which he by robbery got, 8 almshouses he built, thinking thereby to purge the blood which he had spilt. Such was their blind devotion then, depending on their works, which if were true we Christian men, in fear were to Turks. But to speak true of Robin Hood, and wrong him not a jot, he never would shed any man's blood that him invaded not. For would he injure husbandmen that toiled at cart and plough, for well he knew were not for them to live no man knew how. The king in person with some lords to Nottingham did ride, to try what strength and skill affords to crush these outlaw pride. And as he had once done before, he did again proclaim that whosoe'er would take upon to bring to Nottingham, or any place within the land, rebellious Robin Hood, should be preferred in place to stand with those of noble blood.
Yay! Bravo!
Thanks.
Bravo!
Fall. Good job. That was great.
Yeah, that was awesome.
I do have volume 1 and 2 at my desk if anyone would like to peruse them.
It seems so hard to keep the pace. The language is so different, you know.
Oh no, you don't even know.
It's
You don't even know.